when I first came up with the idea of E.T., I came up with the actual idea probably when I was a little kid, feeling very lost and alienated, being this Jewish kid in always all Gentile neighborhoods. But then later in life, when my parents were divorced, feeling very much lost and alone. And I remember on the set of Close Encounters when I had Richard Dreyfuss and E.T. returning to the mothership, where it gets swallowed up into the light. And I had this kind of amazing epiphany at that moment while the cameras were rolling. And I thought, I wonder if I should change the ending of this movie. Not another movie, but Close Encounters. What if E.T. is a foreign exchange student? What if that extraterrestrial, who we called Puck, stayed behind with Truffaut, and Dreyfuss goes, and they take that E.T. back to Langley or Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and start to study him and communicate with him and really try to figure out what their race is like and how we can further our relationship. Wouldn't that be a great movie? Then I said, no, I'll save that for another movie. But I was haunted by this idea of an E.T. that gets trapped on Earth and doesn't go back into the mothership. So in a sense, when I wrote the story of E.T., that was the progression of epiphanies that led up to the actual story of an alien who's lost and alone and 3 million miles from home. He doesn't go AWOL. He's curious. His curiosity gets the better of him. And maybe the other aliens, the botanists, were too busy categorizing and finding plants on Earth to put in their little greenhouse. But E.T. was interested in the big redwood trees, and he was walking away. 600-year-old E.T. is probably the most lost of all the kids I've ever had in a film. But he's no less lost than Elliot. Lost in a divorce, no real friends in his life. And that was the bonding of E.T. and Elliot. The alien and the alienated. The two souls, lost souls, who absolutely require each other for a very short amount of time so they can both survive in a spiritual way. I mean, for me, E.T. is the most spiritual movie ever made. And that was not an accident. I mean, it was something that I always deeply felt. John Williams has made the most remarkable contribution to all of my movies, and they reach the heart universally. In every country, on every continent of the planet, John Williams speaks to people, and John rewrites my movies musically. And I think with E.T., especially at the end, ILM and I can make those bicycles lift off and get off the ground. We can do that. But John Williams is the only one who can make them truly airborne, because the audience lifts off the ground on John Williams' violins. And the audience is carried across the moon or the sun with John Williams' string section and his horns later on when they land. And I think the last 15 minutes of E.T. is as close to an opera because of John Williams' contributions to that movie than anything I've ever done before in my life.
Jurassic Park.
I'd want to make a dinosaur picture all my life because I'm a huge fan of Ray Harryhausen, but I could never find a realistic way to do dinosaurs until Michael Crichton figured out a science that would make it almost allowable, which is, hey, if a mosquito bites a dinosaur 150 million years ago, it gets trapped in amber and is preserved in amber, and you extract the DNA from the blood inside the mosquito of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, can we not bring back the T-Rex? And it was enough credible science that I went, that is one of the most genius combinations of science and imagination I had ever witnessed anybody come up with. And that was all Michael Crichton. There were a lot of risks involved in an art form that had never been perfected. A main character, digital dinosaur, had never been done before for the movie. So in a way, Jurassic Park was the first movie that ever made its made characters, where the entire success or failure of the story was dependent on these digital characters. That was the first time that was ever done, and that was the risk I think all of us took, because I could have played it safe, and Phil Tippett was standing by and prepared to do his magic with his Go Motion animation. And we had already done months and months of tests of raptors and gallimimus and T-Rexes, all done with claymation. But when Dennis Murin got together with some of the other people at ILM, and we all decided to give this new technology a chance, and I saw the first test. Ray Harryhausen, and this is one of those things that never happens in real life, but it did happen in this real life. Ray Harryhausen was scheduled to meet me for the first time and to come over here to Universal to say hi to me. I never met him. I'm a huge fan of his. He comes over, we have this great conversation, and I say, would you like to see a digital dinosaur? And I brought him over and I showed him my very, very first test, which was gallimimuses running across a field, but not fleshed. We didn't flesh them. It was just skeletal gallimimus running across a field. And he looked at that and he just said, well, there's your future. There's the future. When you have something which is so unfamiliar to us in our time, which is a Tyrannosaurus Rex, it's 34 feet standing upright, something that menacing, it's not as interesting for me to have people running through a jungle being menaced by a T-Rex, because the people are in a prehistoric terra firma. And they're sort of in the territory of where the dinosaurs, when the dinosaurs ruled the earth, and we're on their land now. But it's much more interesting for an audience, I think, to put a T-Rex next to a modern car, or put raptors inside a modern industrial kitchen, or inside a laboratory with computers everywhere. Things that we today are familiar with. One of the things that I responded to when I read Jurassic Park was that it was primal, and I respond to primal things in both nature and man. I was absolutely not trying to be humble about it. I was saying, hey, this is kind of like Duel and Jaws combined, and this is right up my alley. And rather than striking out and doing something that I had never done before, I thought it would be a lot of fun for me and for the audience to bring dinosaurs back in a believable way